Being hood can be described as knowing how to survive in a certain environment. In that environment, survival is active. The threat may not always be visible, but unpredictability is a part of daily life, so people learn to stay alert and recognize danger before it fully reveals itself. The deeper question is, what happens when those survival rules become an identity? People use the word hood as though it describes one kind of person. Sometimes it refers to where someone grew up. Other times it describes how they speak, dress, respond to conflict, or carry themselves around people they don't trust. It can describe humor and resourcefulness just as easily as aggression, pride, or emotional armor. A person can grow up in the hood without building their identity around it. Another person can leave and still carry its rules into every room. Someone else may copy the language, posture, style, and attitude without ever living under the conditions that created them. Being hood is not one personality. It's a collection of adaptations, cultural habits, and social codes shaped under pressure. Before going further, one distinction matters. Hood culture is not black culture. Black culture is too broad to be reduced to poverty, danger, street behavior, or survival codes. Black life includes every class, region, profession, family structure, faith, temperament, and political belief imaginable. But segregation and economic neglect concentrated many black families inside of disadvantaged communities. The culture created under those conditions became highly visible through music, television, film, fashion, and now social media. Eventually, those marketable images began to stand in for the whole, but it never represented the whole. Blackness does not require dysfunction, and wanting stability or peace does not make someone less black. The hood is an environment before it becomes an identity. It's shaped by more than low income. It's a combination of limited opportunity, unstable housing, strained schools, visible conflict, unreliable institutions, and the knowledge that mistakes cost more when there's little room to recover. People adapt to that reality. They learn to notice changes in tone and body language. Unfamiliar cars, unusual questions, and situations that feel wrong before anyone openly admits that there's a problem. People from calmer environments may call it paranoia, but in an unpredictable setting, it can be highly developed social intelligence. The difficulty comes when vigilance becomes automatic and every room begins to look like a version of the same threat. The environment also changes the meaning of respect. In safer settings, an insult may be irritating. In places where appearing vulnerable can invite more pressure, disrespect may feel like a public test. The conflict is rarely only about what was said. It's also about what other people might conclude if nothing happens afterwards. Walking away may be the intelligent choice, but intelligence is not always what the environment rewards in the moment. Restraint can be read as fear, and de-escalation can look like submission. That pressure helps explain why minor disputes can become serious. A person may risk employment, freedom, or physical safety because being seen as weak feels more dangerous than what the confrontation would cost them. The response makes sense inside the code. That doesn't mean the code always protects the person using it. Over time, survival behavior can become difficult to separate from personality. Fear may come out as aggression because aggression feels safer to display. Hurt creates distance, embarrassment triggers confrontation, and grief may be buried because visible pain creates exposure. Fear may come out as aggression because aggression feels safer to display. Hurt creates distance, embarrassment triggers confrontation, and grief may be buried because visible pain creates exposure. Someone may believe they're naturally hard when hardness was learned. They may think they don't care when caring once made them vulnerable. And this is part of why tension can feel more believable than peace. Calm may seem suspicious, and trust can look naive. Even a healthy relationship may feel less familiar than one filled with conflict. People don't always choose chaos because they enjoy it. Sometimes chaos is the emotional language they learned first. Outside of that environment, there may be more opportunity but less certainty. New spaces come with different codes. A person may not know how they're being judged. whether they belong, or how much of themselves they're expected to change. That uncertainty can be more frightening than the struggle they already understand. Some performative toughness is really an attempt to hide that uncertainty. A person may not fear leaving the hood itself. They may fear entering a world where their old instincts no longer guarantee belonging. And this is where keeping it real becomes complicated, because at its best, it means refusing to become ashamed of where you're from. It means understanding that polished language, professional clothing, or access to influential spaces don't make someone more intelligent or more human. But keeping it real can also become a demand to remain familiar. Changing how you handle conflict may be called weakness. Learning how to communicate in different environments may be treated as being fake. Growth becomes a loyalty test. Certain behaviors may continue because the old identity still connects someone to family, memory, and belonging. And leaving the behavior behind can feel like leaving the people behind. But those are not the same thing. You can reject a destructive rule without rejecting everyone who survived by it. People in disadvantaged communities learn to create with almost nothing. They turn homes into businesses. They pass useful skills through families and friendships, stretch limited money, and build informal networks when established institutions offer little help. And that's the meaning behind getting it out of the mud. It's the pride of creating movement when there was little provided. That resourcefulness deserves respect. The danger begins when struggle becomes proof that someone is authentic. Pain becomes a credential, while stability is mistaken for softness and peace feels unearned. Someone raised with support may be dismissed as less capable because they didn't survive the same conditions. At that point, hardship is no longer only something the person overcame, it's become the explanation for their worth. The identity also passes from parents to children, but context matters. A parent raising children under the same conditions may be teaching rules that remain practical. The child is exposed to many of the same dangers, pressures, and unreliable systems, so the survival lesson still fits the setting. The contradiction appears when the parent is moved. A mother or father may raise a child in a middle class or suburban community while still teaching them according to the neighborhood they survived. The child may be told never to appear weak in school, where cooperation matters more than reputation. They may approach conflict as a threat when the situation requires communication. They can inherit their parents' caution without fully understanding the world that created it. The parent believes they're protecting the child, but sometimes they're preparing the child for a reality that's no longer fully present. That doesn't mean that caution is outdated. A safer neighborhood doesn't erase racism, bullying, exploitation, or the possibility of violence. The question is whether the lesson still fits the situation. Teaching a child to pay attention to people's motives can serve them anywhere. Teaching them to assume everyone is trying to play them can damage friendships, work relationships, and intimacy before trust has a chance to develop. A survival instinct is valuable when a person can recognize when it's needed and when it's not. Without that ability, the person stops reading the room in front of them. They read every room through the memory of another. Then there's the person who performs hood identity without carrying the conditions behind it. Language, style, posture, and aggression can be copied because the image suggests confidence, toughness, credibility, and freedom from polite expectations. But the performer usually has an exit. They can use the image when it brings attention and abandon it when consequences arrive. The survivor doesn't always have that freedom. Even after changing clothes, moving neighborhoods, or becoming financially stable, they may still be treated as threatening, unrefined, or out of place. Society often prefers the performer because the performance is controlled. The performer makes the hood entertaining. The survivor reminds people that the hood leaves marks. Entertainment and social media widen that gap. A style created under limited conditions becomes a luxury fashion. Language born in one neighborhood becomes global slang. Stories about hustling, violence, and survival become profitable to people who don't carry the aftermath. The deeper consequences appears when that commercial image travels back to the neighborhood. Some young people begin comparing themselves to exaggerated versions of their own environment. Reputations become public content, and private conflict becomes a test performed for an audience. A person may know retaliation could cost years of freedom and still feel pressure to respond because backing down now threatens an identity being watched online. At that point, the culture is no longer only reflecting behavior. The commercial image begins instructing people how hood they're supposed to be. And this is how trauma gets confused with strength. The refusal to tolerate disrespect may sound powerful, but if anyone can control your decisions by insulting you, they control more of you than you do. Incarceration can also become confused with credibility. The legal system may be unjust, but losing years, income, family connection, and opportunity doesn't become empowering because people learn how to celebrate surviving it. Captivity is still captivity. Real strength is not the inability to feel fear, embarrassment, or humiliation. It's the ability to experience those emotions without allowing someone else to choose your next move. That's the dividing line between survival intelligence and self-destruction. There's an old saying that you can take some people out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of some people. Usually it's meant to be an insult, but the saying identifies something real. Environment leaves a language inside people. It shapes how they understand danger, authority, relationships, and opportunity. The goal should not be to erase that language. The goal is to become multilingual. A person should be able to recognize street dynamics without turning every interaction into one. They should know how to communicate in a neighborhood, a workplace, and an intimate relationship without becoming fake in any of them. That's not changing yourself to make other people comfortable. It's having enough range to avoid becoming trapped inside of one social reality. That range changes the identity itself. An evolved hood identity does not lose its edge. It gains control over when that edge is necessary. Awareness becomes discernment instead of constant suspicion. Loyalty no longer requires protecting people from every consequence. Ambition survives, but success is no longer measured only by escape, money, or public proof. The person can adapt without feeling that adaptation is betrayal. They understand that every environment has its own language, and power comes from knowing how to communicate without surrendering who you are. That's a deeper form of toughness. It may look like walking away, asking for help, communicating differently in a new setting, or admitting that a rule inherited from someone you love no longer fits your life. Those choices don't make someone less authentic. They show that the identity is no longer making every decision for them. That may be the clearest difference between carrying the hood and remaining confined by it. Carrying it means keeping the humor, intuition, creativity, ambition, and cultural memory without treating every survival response as permanent. Confinement begins when every old response is treated as permanent simply because it once made sense. Growth requires judgment. You have to recognize which instincts are protecting you, which ones are only familiar, and which ones are quietly reproducing the damage you say you want to escape. Being hood is not one identity. It's a culture built under pressure, carrying wisdom and injury at the same time. Maturity doesn't require erasing where you came from. It means learning how to move through different environments without allowing the old one to make every decision. The goal is not to hate the mud. The goal is to stop mistaking the mud for home.